Be excused, and please continue to call the answering machine to find out when you're to report back. Thank you.
When do we call back?
Call after 5 today. The case will proceed as follows. The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, the prosecutor, will make an opening statement to you, which is more or less a summary of the evidence they expect to have come in. The defense counsel may then make an opening statement also, or they can reserve that until after the Commonwealth's case is completed. The plaintiff, the Commonwealth, will then introduce evidence for you. The defense will have an opportunity to introduce evidence. Rebuttal evidence may be introduced, so it could go back and forth. And the court will then instruct you on the law of the case, and you follow those instructions in returning your verdict. Each side will then give closing arguments to you, and then you'll retire to the jury room and begin deliberations. During breaks that we have, do not discuss the case, don't form an opinion as to guilt or not guilty until after the close of the evidence and after you have retired to determine your verdict. Wait for all of the evidence to come in and all of the arguments to be made. Do not discuss the case with anyone while you're on breaks, including each other. Don't discuss it with anyone else either, not your spouse, nobody. Don't read any accounts, if there would be any, in the newspaper or on the internet perhaps. Don't read any comments concerning the case. Don't listen to anything on the radio. In other words, don't receive any information concerning the case other than what you hear here in this courtroom that's introduced as evidence and admissible legitimate evidence. That's what you're consider in determining the case and nothing else. Anything else?
Yes. Could we enforce a rule and separate the witnesses?
Yes.
We've already done that. But
Okay. The Commonwealth is allowed to have one representative of the Commonwealth here to help them during trial, and I don't think you have any witnesses present. So, otherwise, the witnesses will be kept separate. Okay. The Commonwealth may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
I told you, Larry, that probably after this case on take the day, and that's because I don't think this is a very difficult case. This is what we intend to prove to you. Mr. Shelby Shell, seated over at the other table, was an inmate back. The time frame here is October 2013, just a few months ago. Mr. Shelby Shell was an inmate in the Harlan County Detention Center. Now, inmates, when they're in the detention center, there's certain things that they can't have. And we intend to show you that Mr. Shelby Shell had some of those very things that inmates just can't have. I will introduce to you the testimony of some employees from the detention center. What you will learn is that the cell of Shelby Shell was searched. There came a time that a search was done. The officer in charge of that will tell you all about that. And what we intend to introduce to you as evidence is what was found in the search of that cell when they did the search that day. First of all, I have these things here. You will see them. We will introduce them into evidence. A piece of rope that we believe, and we intend to prove to you that Mr. Shelby Shell made this piece of rope, 3.5 feet long. Also, we intend to show you, and we intend to prove to you that Mr. Shelby Shell also made and concealed a piece of metal. The detention center employees will show you that a shower rod that would hold a curtain, but like a shower rod, was broken in the cell of Mr. Shelby Shell, and they brought that for you to see, this piece that was broken, and then the piece of metal that was broken, sharpened. You'll get to see that, and what you'll have to decide is if these two things, there's another thing, it's that was made, you'll get to see that, but primarily what I'm going to ask you to focus on and what I'm going to ask you to decide is whether the combination of these things or these things individually, a 3.5 piece length of rope plus a sharpened piece of metal that has had a handle too, if those things would constitute dangerous contraband that an inmate would have in his possession in the jail. That's what you'll be asked to decide. I will also introduce evidence to you that Mr. Shelby Shell lives and did at that time, October 17, 2013, lived in the cell alone. And the officer in charge here will give testimony that cell was searched before he ever moved into there. He was in there alone. No other inmate was in there. So these things, they'll tell you where they were found. That this sharpened piece of metal, I'll show you in just a few minutes, was concealed in the toilet in Mr. Shelby Shell's private cell there, up under the rim. And of course, we would say hopes that it would not be found. This length of rope was found, I believe, underneath his bed mat. These things were concealed, though, and I'll just let the officer give you all the details about where these things were found. And that's it. As simple as that. That's what we intend to show you. These things were found in a cell where only he was, a cell that was searched before, and we'll let you see these things and then ask you to determine whether or not these things contribute dangerous contraband. And then I'll ask you to find him guilty of promoting contraband while in a detention facility. Thank you.
Mr. Sutherland?
Thank you, Your Honor.
My name is Will Simon. Like I said earlier, I represent Mr. Shell. Staff report has told you what they intend to prove. What she didn't tell you, however, was that in Mr. Shell's cell, Shelby's cell, he's got a video camera. He's always recorded. Not only is there a video camera, but there's a microphone and a speakerphone. So they can hear and they can see. They've got eyes and ears and they can see him at all times. But they won't show you the video because there isn't any. They don't have video of him breaking down a shower rod, sharpening a piece of metal. What they do have is they went in and they found this in his cell. But what they don't have is a real story. They don't have a piece of documentation saying they searched the cell beforehand. They may have testimony, but they don't have a document, an official form, a signature. They don't have anything besides their testimony. So what I want you to do today is to listen to all the evidence and think about how nice it would be if we did have video. We could see everything, and how easy it would be to decide that. But after the evidence is found, I believe that you will see what I see, which is there's just not enough evidence here. They can't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Shell actually possessed, knowingly possessed, the piece of metal. Now, the rope, we'll get into that and some other things. But the real key here is the piece of metal. Like the staff report said, there's a few other items that are going to be a part of this case. A fake paper gun and a fake knife made out of paper toys. Anyway, I'm not going to talk your arm off. I just want you to listen to the evidence. Thanks for keeping an open mind until the entire case is over. And at the end, we'll be able to decide. I think you'll see as I see. Mr. Shell is not guilty.
Thank you. Commonwealth, call your first witness.
Commonwealth calls Derek Moore.
Could you raise your right hand, please, and be sworn? Do you swear or solemnly... Do you swear or solemnly affirm that the answers you will give to questions asked to you will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Be seated.
Would you please state your full name?
Derek Anthony Moore.
Mr. Moore, how are you employed?
I'm Administrative Sergeant of the Harlan County Detention Center.
How long have you been an employee of the Harlan County Detention Center?
October of this year will make 5 years.
And you say you're Administrative Sergeant?
Correct.
What would your primary job responsibilities be?
I have many. I'm a jail administrator. To do with this case, I was the officer who was put in charge of the investigation and the gathering of facts for this situation.
Now, are you, just in general, are you familiar with the defendant in this case, Mr. Shelby Shell?
I am.
And how are you familiar with him?
He's been incarcerated during this period in our facility since March of last year.
Now, specifically, was Mr. Shelby Shell an inmate on October 17, 2013?
He was.
And you were employed there at that time, October 17th?
I was.
Were you part of an investigation that would have occurred in that month, October of 2013, that involved Mr. Shell?
Yes.
And if you would tell the jury how the investigation of Mr. Shell, how that came about.
Okay. Our shifts run in 12-hour shifts for those who work on the floor, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's a lot that goes on between the transition of shifts. So during the transition of shift from night to morning, one of our deputies who was assigned to the control room, who has observation of the entire facility, camera point of view of every single cell, had noticed that inmate Shelby Shell, inside of his isolation cell, where he is housed alone and had been for 2 months, had some sort of suspicious activity inside the shower. Because of the transition of the shifts, she didn't have time to investigate, so she reported this to the shift supervisor who came in at 8 a.m., who was Lieutenant Dan Howard. Lieutenant Howard listened to what the deputy had to say, called the jailer, Kurt Stallard, over our facility phones, gave him the information that I just mentioned, and asked the jailer how to proceed. The jailer instructed Lieutenant Howard, as soon as there was a gap in activity.
Just a minute.
Hold it.
There's been an objection.
I just
Approach
don't
the
want-
bench, approach the bench.
I was just going to object that if he's going to testify to what Kurt Stallard said, again, in order to use Kurt Stallard here, I think it's hearsay. I don't think it should be allowed.
Once the report was received of the activity at night, what was decided would be done at the jail that morning?
Lieutenant Howard contacted the jailer. The jailer issued
Well,
as soon as... I'm sorry.
without telling us what other people said,
Okay.
the question is just, what did you decide, Eric, that was going to be done?
A cell search.
Okay, now in general, as a matter of standard procedure, when, if ever, do you search inmate cells?
We search inmate cells at a staggered pace because if we do it at a scheduled time, the inmates will have knowledge of it and prepare for it.
Is there any kind of frequency that you would normally search inmate cells?
Isolation cells, whenever the inmates are not in there when they take showers, we scan them on a regular basis, especially the cell that inmate Shell was in at the time.
Okay, and so not just for Shelby Shell, but for every inmate in the Harlan County Detention Center, is it fair to say that a search is going to occur with some frequency?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, you mentioned video. Was the cell where Shelby Shell lived alone, was that under video surveillance?
It was under video surveillance.
Okay, now, from the videos, does somebody just watch a camera, or does the surveillance happen?
Inside the control room operator has 3 screens where the entire jail activity is broken up, 16 cameras per screen, and the third screen is for, in case there's something going on, you can visualize and pull it up on the main screen by itself. So that's how the activity was seen.
Okay, now this video, and now let's concentrate on the personal cell of Shelby Shell. This video, can you see every square inch of the cell from this video surveillance?
You cannot.
What can you not see?
I would say an 85% of the inside of the shower area, inside the shower.
And for Shelby Shell individually, was there surveillance at this time, October 2013, was it constant?
Yes, the cameras ran 24 hours a day.
The cameras ran, but do you know if someone actually focuses on him 24 hours a day?
It'd be impossible. Our jail holds, as of today, 211. Our capacity is 224.
Okay, what about audio? I believe the defense counsel mentioned audio of what goes on inside the cell.
There is no audio recorded. There is a button that can be depressed and can signal the person in the control room in case of distress or emergency. And when that's depressed and the control operator activates that button to work, there is a speaker that was accessible at that time. But it was not recorded.
Okay. Now, after the determination was made that perhaps there's some suspicious activity, did a search occur?
The search did occur.
Do you know, or can you tell the jury who all was involved in that search?
Certainly. Lieutenant Dan Howard, assisted by Deputy Brad Lawson, conducted a strip search of inmate Shell inside the shower room, their booking, and then it was initialized for Deputy Brad Lawson, Deputy Morgan Lee, and Deputy Michael Goodman, overseen by Lieutenant Dan Howard, to search the cell. So that's 3 deputies, 1 lieutenant.
Okay, and can you tell the jury what each person did during the search in terms of, did they have different areas? So what area and what did they do?
They did. We tried to come up with a game plan. Because there was mention of suspicious activity in the shower room, our Deputy Morgan Lee specifically went to the shower area. Brad Lawson went to the sink and toilet area, and Michael Goodman went to the metal bunk area of the cell.
And if you would tell the jury what was uncovered during the search by Lee, Goodman, and Lawson, with Dan Howard present.
Deputy Lee testified to me that as soon as he entered the cell and went towards the shower area, he noticed, and it's not really a shower rod, it's a track that's attached to the ceiling. He noticed that track had been tampered with and saw an end of it broken off. So he retrieved a ladder and inspected further, and then was directed to take that track down from the ceiling completely, which took effort. Brad Lawson went to the sink toilet area with gloves. He searched under and around the entire area. When he felt inside of the rim of the metal toilet, now this is not like a porcelain toilet, it's metal. So there is an encasing underneath the rim. When the deputy felt underneath, he felt an object. It was adhered there. He pulled it out and found the piece of metal with the black putty adhering it to the inside of the rim. Deputy Goodman went to the bunk, lifted the mat, and found what we refer to as the rope and the other contraband underneath the mat. The rope was found inside of the right tennis shoe of Shell there beside of the bunk, found by Michael Goodman.
Now, the things that you have just described, the track that was taken down, the piece of rope, the metal piece, and you said another piece of contraband, what was done with those things?
The deputies handed them over to Lieutenant Howard, who in return walked directly to the jailer, Kurt Stallard. They were bagged and put inside of a filing cabinet as evidence. The only step that I skipped is I took photographs as they were being bagged.
Okay. So you actually took photographs of that?
I did.
And to the best of your knowledge, did each of these things recovered from Shelby Shell's cell, did they remain in that locked filing cabinet?
Absolutely.
Did you retrieve at any time those items from that filing cabinet?
No.
Okay. What about this morning?
This morning, I asked the jailer if I could have them to present to court. He opened the filing cabinet in my presence, handed them over to me.
Okay. And so, did you actually bring those items to court today?
Those items are present here today.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of items, and I'm going to ask you if you can identify those. First, I'm going to show you what I previously marked, or what the clerk has previously marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit Number 1. If you can identify what that is.
This is the 3.5-foot length of what we described as rope found inside of P2 inmate Shell's isolation cell.
Okay, and exactly where was what's in this bag marked as Commonwealth 1, exactly where was that found?
That was inside of the right tennis shoe adjacent to the metal bunk that Michael Goodman searched.
Okay, now I'll show you what I've marked as Commonwealth Exhibit number 2. Now I ask if you recognize what is contained in this bag marked. Well, first of all, let's run back to number 1. There is writing on this bag. Is that your handwriting?
That is my handwriting.
Okay, and can you just tell me what the handwriting on this bag says?
The handwriting says 10-17-13 M8 Shelby Shell Isolation Cell P2 3 foot by 5 inch length rope.
Okay, this Commonwealth Exhibit 1 that you identified as rope, do you recognize the material of this?
If it were my professional guess, it could be from a t-shirt.
Okay. Now, what we've marked as Commonwealth Exhibit number 2, handwriting on the bag. Is that your handwriting?
That is my handwriting.
Okay, and first of all, tell the jury what's in this bag, if you recognize it.
May I pick it up, please?
Yes.
Here we have almost exactly 6-inch piece of track that has been filed down to a sharp point on the side, and it being beveled here on the end anyway. It was just sharpened on the side. This is the black putty that was attached to the flat side. You can see the indentation of the railing there on the putty. Also, we're trained by Kentucky Department of Corrections to, if you find something that appears to be a shank, to also identify a handle so it doesn't damage a hand if it's ever used. We identified this as the handle made for this, what we define as a shank. It's made out of cardboard, tied with string either from a sock or from a t-shirt.
Okay. Is cardboard available in an inmate cell?
No, milk cartons mainly. They receive milk cartons in the morning for their breakfast intake, and sometimes they do get the cardboard bias when they finish drinking it. They can flatten it out and it's easy to hide.
Okay. Now you described that it's actually in this bag putty.
Correct.
Where would do you have putty at the jail, in the cells?
We have putty throughout the jail. Putty is the best way I can describe it. It's black. It's made for insulation purposes. The showers inside of Isolation Cell P2 is stainless steel. So putty was put along the seal perimeter so that water would not escape the actual stainless steel and run down the walls and cause permanent water damage to the building. It's throughout the whole jail, though.
Okay, so that's Commonwealth's 1, Commonwealth's 2. I now want to show you what we've marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit number 3, and see if you can tell me about this. You recognize this tube?
I do.
Okay. Did you put something into this tube?
I placed item 3 inside of that tube.
Okay, if you will take that out and tell us what it is.
This is the piece of aluminum track that was attached to Isolation Cell P2 to the ceiling. These are the markings where it was screwed into the ceiling. And this is where Deputy Morgan Lee walked in and initially saw that this had been broken off. And if you line these two pieces, you can see the break mark is consistent with one another.
Okay, so you mean the break mark here is consistent with with this part of Commonwealth's number 2?
Correct.
Okay. If this bag is opened, does this metal piece slide out of what you described as the handle?
It does.
So that you can actually line that up?
Yes.
I mean, something the jury could, if they wish to?
Yes.
Okay.
I can do that now if you'd like me to.
Well, if you don't mind.
Sure. You can see on both ends it was filed down. You can see the markings there where it was filed down. If you look at both sides, the track and the material is consistent with one another. just been filed on both ends.
What kind of floor does the cell of Shelby Shell and I mean the cell he lived in October 2013, what kind of floor is in that cell?
The floor is concrete.
Okay, and is there any type of furniture, what other types of things are in that cell besides, I mean, you talked about there's a shower, of course there's a toilet, that's where that was found. What else is in that room?
There's a metal bunk attached to the floor, and also there is a metal table and a metal small seat adjacent to the table attached to the wall.
Okay. Now, if you'll just put 3 back into 3's tube there. Well, if we can, I'll return over to here. As the individuals come, I'll move to them. So I'm just going to return these over here. You did the investigation. Once your investigation was complete, did you make a report?
I did. The first report, besides an incident report that's what Dan Howard had done, I reported to Kentucky Department of Corrections on 10/21/13. So from the 17th to the 21st, that was how long my initial investigation to completion took. I did an extraordinary occurrence form for Kentucky Department of Corrections, along with photographs of the contraband, and turned that into to Kentucky Department of Corrections.
And you took the photographs that you attached to the report, you took those yourself?
Emailed them.
No. I'm saying you're actually the photographer for those pictures?
I was the photographer, yeah, photographer.
So you prepared a form for the Department of Corrections. You included something prepared for you by Lieutenant Dan Howard?
Correct.
Okay, and the photographs?
Correct.
Let me show you. First, let me ask the clerk to mark this as Commonwealth Exhibit number 4. Okay. Is this the report that you just described?
It is.
Okay. The top page, that is, you said you prepared some type of form?
This is a standard form for Kentucky Department of Corrections on extraordinary occurrences.
Extraordinary occurrence. Okay. Page 2. What's page 2?
This is the initial incident report saved on Jail Tracker, our jail system that we use to track everything that happens, that we document, and it was prepared by Lieutenant Dan Howard.
And the following pages that completes the report, tell me what, they're photographs, correct?
They are photographs,
That you
yes.
took?
Yes.
Just tell us what's in each photograph.
The metal item found inside the rim of the toilet we define as a shank, sharpened. The handle for the shank. The rope length made of T-shirt. What we project to be a toy gun. And also Exhibit 3 that I just presented, which was the actual track removed from the ceiling. Also the putty, and then the 3 of the items together in one photograph.
Okay. Now, at the time that these things were found, Mr. Shell definitely was an inmate at the Harlan County Detention Center.
He was.
Did any other inmate have access to Mr. Shell's cell at that time in October 2013?
No.
And this is the detention center, it's in Harlan County, Kentucky, correct?
Correct.
Now, all the things, Commonwealth's 1, Commonwealth's 2, Commonwealth's Exhibit 3. Now, there was something else found in the cell, correct?
There were a few other items.
Okay, did you bring those today?
I did.
Okay, I think I've marked, okay, then that would be Commonwealth's Exhibit 5.
Yeah.
Did you just package the remainder of what you found together?
The jailer did in my presence, yes.
Okay. Well, we'll mark this as Commonwealth Exhibit number 5. I'll ask you to open it up and just tell us
Sure.
what's there. Recognize this?
I do. You'd like me to open the bag?
Yes, please.
This is the item referred to as the toy gun. We have our own theories, but it's made of cardboard, string from either sock or t-shirt, and it's filled with plastic spoons that Mr. Shell was supposed to turn in at the time. On both end, wrapped with saran wrap that certain items they get for breakfast are wrapped in, and the black putty, you can see where he started to adhere the black putty that he had retrieved on the handle of the gun.
Now, spoons, what kind of spoons are they?
They're plastic spoons.
How does an inmate get that?
They're given during meals, and in isolation cell where inmate Shell was, they're taken back after the meal. It's something he's not allowed to have past the eating of that meal.
Okay, and specifically, where was that found?
This was found under the mattress on the metal bunk. All of these materials were found under the mattress. The rest of the material just consists of items he was not supposed to have. We took some of the items apart to see what else was in them. He had what we would call a toy knife, which was our toothpaste packets. The inmate's toothpaste come in packets. The inside gives the aluminum metallic glow. This was wrapped around this spoon to give the appearance of a toy, and it was bent to give the sharp edge of a knife. We have our own professional theories on this as well.
Okay, and what else is in the bag?
Just everything else that we retrieved from the search, which is more packets and other pieces of cardboard that had been manipulated.
Okay, now you said that Shelby Shell was not supposed to have these things.
No,
So, but they're given to him, correct?
they are.
And then what happens? Well, just after an inmate is given any of these things, a toothpaste packet, a spoon, what's supposed to happen?
When deputies come back to receive the materials after they eat, a lot of times in isolation, items like a spoon get by the deputies. So he had hoarded these up, as we would say.
Okay. And everything that you've shown us in the Commonwealth's exhibits, with the exception of that report, all of these things were found in the cell of Shelby Shell.
Correct.
And he had lived there how long?
From the day of the search, right at 2 months, he had been in this cell alone.
Did anybody other than jail personnel have access to that?
No one other than jail personnel.
Okay. And as for the report, Commonwealth's Exhibit 4, we'd move to admit that.
Any objection? Yes, approach the bench.
The report was prepared by Lieutenant Howard or was prepared by this officer? I didn't get that.
It was prepared by him. It includes the one-page incident
incident.
report by Dan Howard, who will testify.
Okay, that's our only objection, was to make sure that Lieutenant Howard testifies to, so.
Exhibits 1 through 4 will be admitted. One through 5, sorry.
So 1 through 5 are admitted?
Yes.
Okay. And I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Well, would you prefer to go now, or would you prefer to break for lunch at this time?
Lunch sounds pretty nice to me. I don't know.
Okay.
Everything, so
Okay, we'll
it's
do
lunchtime.
that. I would suggest coming back at 1 o'clock. That's almost an hour. It's 55 minutes. Excuse me. While you're at lunch, Don't discuss the case among yourselves or allow anyone else to discuss it with you. Don't read any accounts. Don't expose yourself in any way to any information concerning the trial other than what's going on here. Don't reach any conclusions at this point. Wait to hear all of the evidence and arguments. If anyone attempts to discuss the matter with you, report it to the court when you come back. Okay. Anything else? At all? Okay, thank you. We're excused until 1 o'clock.
All rise for jury.
Okay, court's in recess until 1 o'clock.
All rise. All rise.
I count 13. Be seated. Mr. Seidelman, you may cross.
Yes. Ready? Can you hear me?
I can.
Now, I'm going to be asking this way, but if you can't hear me, I try to talk really loud, but make sure to shout out because sometimes this mic doesn't pick up everything, and if you can't hear it, let us know, even if I'm looking that way, okay?
I'll look over every once in a while, just give me some kind of signal if you can't hear. Or if you need a break of some kind, too. Let me know.
That too. Officer Moore,
Yes.
so when we left out, there is in fact a camera in Shelby's cell,
There is.
and Shelby's cell is about, what would you say, 10 by 7?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but more or less.
More or less. And you said that there's a bunk in there, correct?
Correct.
And there's a table and a chair, correct?
Well, the seat is inside the wall, just like the table.
And those are more or less just metal platforms.
Correct.
And besides that, there's nothing else in the cell.
A metal sink and toilet.
Metal sink and toilet. Okay. The piece of metal that was in the shower, that was at the top of the shower?
It was on the top of the ceiling over the shower,
So what is that, like 12 feet high?
between 10 and 12 feet.
And you said that you needed to bring in a ladder to climb up and get the rest of it off?
For our deputies to do it safely, yes,
You needed a ladder.
yes.
Okay, and you said it was difficult to get off. Does that mean that you needed tools? to
The
take it off?
remaining piece was difficult to take off, but the deputy actually removed it by hand.
Okay, but it wasn't easy even with a ladder.
The piece that was remaining, he did take off by hand.
Okay. And I guess you said they saw something on camera the night shift, correct?
Correct,
And told the morning manager,
correct.
and then you searched it that day?
At 1:37 p.m. is the time that was logged when the search began.
Okay, so not even a full day went by from when you saw something and then you searched?
Correct. The most available time is after lunch. So when lunch was served, between 11 and 12, which means trays are passed and retrieved, the time after that would be the most available time to do a search.
Okay. And that cell P2, it's got a door and then a slot in the door? Is that correct?
Correct.
So you can pass things to Shelby through the slot in the door
Things can be passed, correct.
and then pass them back. So,
Correct.
for example, if you gave him a spoon, you could give him a spoon and then he could pass it back through the slot?
Anything that's passed through can be passed back the other way through the slot, yes.
Okay. And so you guys can keep track of exactly what goes in the cell
We can.
and what comes out of the cell?
The person that hands out, it's their job to make sure they get back what they hand out.
Yeah, so that's a specific responsibility of a person that you,
It is.
okay. And for example, stuff that he is allowed to have, but there's certain times he can't have it. So like his mat that he sleeps on, he can have that for certain periods, you give it to him, and then you take it back?
I'm not sure if that happened during this time period before the search.
But in general?
The way Shelby is treated now, I don't know how really I can answer, considering the motion presented before we began today.
Okay. Fair enough. With his, I guess, currently, as he is right now, he keeps his legal documents outside of the cell. Is that correct?
Correct.
And those legal documents are bundled with rope, correct?
He has used string here currently to do so.
Okay. So that's a use for rope, is to bundle up his legal documents.
A string, the rope that's presented as evidence is a series of strings braided together to create what we would define as a rope.
Okay. And Shelby's waist is about, say, 32 waist?
I'm unsure.
Okay. And that rope is 3.5 feet long?
Correct?
So 3.5, that's 36 inches plus a bow. Could be used for a belt?
It could be used for a belt, or it could be used for other purposes as well. I can say that I've never seen Mr. Shell wire a rope as a belt inside of his cell the entire time I've seen him incarcerated.
Okay. And you found the stuff and you filled out, I think you said four reports and some pictures as soon as you found the stuff?
Lieutenant Dan Howard did the jail tracker report initializing who the deputies that he had given the order to search the cell, himself being one to do the strip search. I initially just took the photographs and watched the jailer lock them in the filing cabinet. My report began from that point to the 21st, where I turned in the extraordinary occurrence form.
So you immediately documented stuff? Started documenting?
You'd have to be more specific as stuff.
You filled out reports, you put it in writing what you found, what you did.
Dan Howard did in his jail tracker report, yes.
And that's important so that we know now what exactly you found, correct?
We logged in that report what we consider to be lethal or considerable contraband. You
Right.
can search any inmate on any given day and find a spoon, a string, a piece of cardboard.
Well-
We wouldn't necessarily do a report unless we had considerable reason to think it was lethal, or could have more of a use that would be more detrimental to the safety of the jail.
In the search, did you find, well, you didn't find any scratch marks on the floor that would indicate sharpening from a metal item?
On
You certainly didn't take pictures of that, did you?
I did not take pictures of the floor, no.
No. And you didn't have any pictures of his hands where his hands were all bloody from ripping metal out from the ceiling?
That's an assumption that his hands have been blooding for ripping the piece off the metal.
But you didn't take any pictures of it, did you?
Of his hands, no. Lieutenant Howard and Deputy Brad Lawson
Right.
did a strip search, which means they look over his body and check his body cavities to make sure he's not hiding any contraband. So you would have to ask those deputies as far as the condition of his hands or body.
But I'm just saying you didn't take any pictures of that, which you did take pictures of other things.
I took pictures of evidence that came from the search.
Okay. Thank you. Does it regularly take 5 people, I guess, you needed 5 people to search an area that is maybe as big as here to there?
It was 3 people.
That's normal procedure, is to take 5 people along?
It's not normal procedure, but again, I can't go into detail as why the procedure would take place with inmate Shell because of the motion filed before this trial.
And then, as far as your job description, you are not the one that actually looks at the camera, right? You just oversaw the...
I do have the capability to pull up an active camera on a flat screen TV that's above my desktop. I'm able to pull up the entire jail as it's running currently at the time.
Do you have the ability to record that video?
On and off, we've had that ability since the jail has been in presence in Verda since 2007.
Since 2007, you've been able to record video.
For the most part, yes.
But during this time, there was no video recorded.
The explanation that I can give you why we don't have the recorded footage for inmate Shell cell, there are a lot of surges that happen between Verda and the Everett area. And just like your regular equipment at home, we have problems with our laptops, our towers, our hot water heaters. For example, right now, we're having a crisis over hot water heaters because of the amount of surges that happen. Our jail has to maintain power, so power drops, there's a section of time there's no power, converts to generator. When we have to go back from generator to live power, there's a surge that happens again to generate back to regular power. So every time we have a surge, generally we have 2 on average, and they happen anywhere between 1 to 2 every week since I worked at the jail since 2009. So the DVRs that do the actual recording, we had a malfunction in them to where you could watch the camera in real time. But the DVR that actually held the recording had malfunctioned and no longer held the recording.
9, 10. So for about 5 years, you haven't had a consistent video recording device?
Define consistent.
I mean, twice a week it goes out?
That doesn't mean the DVRs malfunction twice a week.
It doesn't record twice a week?
Our
For
cameras...
5 years it hasn't been recorded?
What I said is we have surges at least twice a week since I worked there. Just like your machinery or electronics at home, they can malfunction at any time, not saying they do every time you have a surge. I can say during the time that the cell search happened and the previous days before, we were not able to retrieve the video footage. We just went off the testimony of our deputy in the control room who said that she had seen Shelby in the shower with suspicious activity, and we might want to look into it. So my deputy's testimony is good enough for me.
But, I mean, I think that is all the questions, right? Do you have any further questions? I think that's all I've got for your time. Thank you.
You read, Rick?
Just a few, Judge. Defense counsel indicated that perhaps what's in evidence that looks like a rope, maybe Mr. Shell was braiding his own belt Would an inmate be allowed to braid their own belt and then hide it in their cell?
If we caught it, we would take it. And the frequency that we search inmate Shell's cell, he couldn't have had it long. The strand that they refer to holding his legal paperwork, we try to keep a specific eye on that because his legal paperwork, and this is just something that happened in the last 6 weeks. It's been an issue as far as a suit he brought against the jail. So we try to accommodate that, but we keep very specific eye on that strand on his legal paperwork to make sure that's what the use is for. As far as the rope being in there, it shouldn't have been in there. And we consider it under Department of Correction terminology to be dangerous in certain hands. So to us, it's a threat.
Okay, now, we've talked generally about the cell, how no other inmate had access to the cell or no other inmate ever lived in the cell of Shelby Shell. Is that true for his shower area? Is that also private?
There is a shower inside the cell. We have contained him inside of a cell block where he's alone and it's self-contained. So that he is self-contained and has to be moved as little as possible. So he has his own toilet and sink that's made of metal, his own shower area, which is a walk-in, and the walls are stainless steel, and he has a metal bunk adjacent to the floor and a table and seat that's adjacent to the wall. So it's a self-contained unit, originally used as a medical unit for someone very sick, but because of situations I'm not allowed to mention, it became the permanent residence in our jail for Mr. Inmate Shell.
Okay, and now, we've referred over and over to the defendant, to Shelby Shell. Is this the man, the one we have in court here today, is this who you've referred to in all your testimony?
Correct. That is who we consider Inmate Shelby Shell.
Thank you. No further questions.
Recross?
No, I don't have any recross, no.
Is this witness finally excused? You want him to remain available?
He can be excused.
You're excused. Thank you very much. Okay, call your next witness.
Commonwealth Cause Morgan Lee.
Oh, counsel, approach the bench for a moment.
I don't want to hear any more from the witnesses about the things they're not allowed to say because of the motion. Okay? No, I don't want you to do that. You can advise your witness if you want to.
Well, I've just advised him not to talk about this.
Right.
The question.
I know, I understand. But
Okay.
I don't want him to answer that.
We will stay away from that topic, so they should be. So you want us to advise them to stay away, because if they're asked a question, they're having a difficult time and understanding, particularly when it comes from defense counsel.
If they ask a question, do you think it's causes a problem with that? Let's approach the bench. Ask to approach the bench and we'll talk about it. Could you raise your right hand, please, and be sworn? Do you swear or solemnly affirm that the answers you will give to questions you're asked will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Be seated.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Morgan Lee.
And Mr. Lee, how are you employed?
How am I employed?
Yes, where are you employed?
The Harlan County Detention Center.
How long have you worked at the Harlan County Detention Center?
6 years.
What are your job responsibilities at the jail?
General booking, intake, a lot of maintaining the safety of the inmates, helping their needs, make sure their needs are met.
Okay. Are you familiar with the defendant, in this case, Mr. Shelby Shell, who's seated right here at this table?
Yes.
Okay. And back in October of 2013, were you a part of a search that took place of Mr. Shell's cell?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you remember how you came to be a part of that search of the cell?
Yes, ma'am. We was instructed by our lieutenant to do a cell search upon that current cell that morning.
Okay. And you were instructed to do the search who is your supervisor that ordered that?
Lieutenant Dan Howard.
Okay. Now, when you arrived at the cell to do the search, were you assigned to search a particular area?
We generally split up, and I was one of the first ones to enter the room, so I went straight to the shower.
To the shower area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, this shower area, was that self-contained within Mr. Shell's cell?
Yes, it's a shower that is independent to that cell.
Upon doing your search of the shower area, what did you find?
I noticed that the shower curtain had been tampered with. It has been held up by plastic inside of it, and I went inside there and I noticed a piece of the tracking was missing off the roof. And I relayed that to my lieutenant, and then we started trying to search for the extra piece of tracking.
Okay. A piece was missing. How high up would that have been?
It maybe 9.5, 10 foot.
Okay. Is there a certain an opening?
It's about 3.5, 4 foot wide. I mean, somebody may be able to get up to it.
Okay. And so then, what did you do once you discovered that there was a piece of that track missing?
After I reported it, we started trying to find it. And the cell is not very big, so, we're spread out enough then, we just reported it to each other and we started looking for it.
Okay. Now, did you leave what was left of the broken track in place?
Oh, no, ma'am. After I reported it, I got a ladder and I took the rest of the remaining track down.
Okay. Did you keep that?
I gave it to the jail maintenance.
Okay. And did you personally, recover anything else in the cell that then jail personnel took custody of, besides what you did with the shower track?
No, ma'am. After I found the track, everything else was found by the other deputies.
Okay. I will show you, I believe, what we've marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit number 3. That's the 2. Okay. This is Commonwealth's Exhibit number 3. If you'll take a look in there and tell me if that's what you discovered and what you testified that you took in.
That is what I took down. That was the remaining piece
Okay.
of the track that was on the roof.
And then you gave that to your supervisor?
I tore it down. Me and the maintenance was in the room then. I guess he turned it over to the Lieutenant Dan Howard, and he presented it, I guess, to Kurt Stallard.
And just to be clear, this was taken down, this was found in Shelby Shell's cell at the Harlan County Detention Center.
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. Judge, I'm not sure if I formally moved to introduce Commonwealth's Exhibit 3. I think maybe 1 through 5 were admitted, but I just want to be sure about that. Okay. Okay, no further questions for this witness?
Officer, prior to the search, were you aware of any problems in Mr. Shell's cell, specifically before that day,
Specific incidents?
regarding any of the materials found that day? Let's limit the question a little.
We was just told that he had spent a lot of time in the shower. And that's kind of what brought it to our attention that we need to, that's one of the main reasons when I did enter first, I did go to the shower first. Because it was brought to our attention that we needed to check the shower first.
And that's the information you were provided that?
I mean, that was enough to perform a cell raid.
All right, that's all the questions I have.
No further questions.
Thank you. You're
Thank you.
excused.
Commonwealth Class Michael Goodman.
Michael Goodman. Could you raise your right hand, please, and be sworn? Do you swear or solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Be seated.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Michael Goodman.
And Mr. Goodman, how are you employed?
I'm a deputy jailer at the Harlan County Detention Center.
How long have you worked at the detention center?
A little over 2 years.
Now, what are your primary job responsibilities there at the jail?
Safety, security.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the defendant in this case who's seated here at this table, Shelby Shell?
Yes.
Were you a part of a search that occurred, a search of Mr. Shell's cell that happened back in October of 2013?
Yes.
How is it that you became a part of that search?
We did a cell search of his cell on that day.
Okay. Were you, did a supervisor, somebody superior to you, assign you to be a part of that search?
Yes, my lieutenant.
Okay. Now, when you arrived at the cell to do the search, were you assigned a specific area that you would search?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What area did you end up searching?
The inmate bunk and the shoes.
Okay.
They were in the floor.
Do you remember if there was just a single pair of shoes or if there were multiple?
As best I can recall, there was only one pair of shoes in there.
Okay. When you searched the bunk area and the shoes, tell the jury what you found.
When I searched the bunk area up underneath the inmate mattress was a toy gun, what appeared to be looked like a toy gun. And in the shoes was a rope about 3.5 foot long.
Okay. And you found this 3.5 foot long, what you describe as a rope, inside the tennis shoes?
Yes, it was coiled up inside I believe it was the right shoe.
Okay. Could you see it sticking out, or did you have to dig into the shoe for it? Do you remember?
I think it was pretty visible. Best I can recall, it was.
I want to show you what we've marked as a Commonwealth's exhibit and ask if you recognize it. Okay, it's Commonwealth's exhibit number 1. You recognize this?
Yes,
Is this what you recovered out of the shoe of Shelby Shell?
yes,
And that was in his private cell that he lived in October 2013?
yes, that's correct.
Anything else that you found during the search of the cell that you would have then turned over?
There was some other full-like items up underneath I believe it was up underneath the inmate mattress that appeared to be in the shape or form or manner of some type of blade, but it was made out of what seemed to be full-like material.
Okay. Whatever you found that you had a question about, did you turn that over to your
My lieutenant, yes, yes, ma'am, I did.
lieutenant? Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Big Frost?
The cardboard gun you found, that's the same cardboard gun that was made up of cardboard and spoons?
I don't know about the spoon part.
Okay. And the rope you found in the shoe?
The rope, yes.
No.
I have nothing else.
Thank you. You may be excused.
Commonwealth plus Bradley Lawson.
Brendan Lawson? You raise your right hand, please, and be sworn. Do you swear or solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Bradley Lawson.
And Mr. Lawson, how are you employed?
I work at the Harlan County Detention Center.
How long have you worked at the detention center?
6 years.
What's your job responsibilities there at the detention center?
I'm a guard. I take care of all the inmates.
Okay. Are you familiar with the person seated here at the table, the defendant Shelby Shell?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, back in October 2013, were you involved in a search of Mr. Shell's cell?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember how it came about that you participated in that search?
Myself and my Lieutenant Howard was the one that was over the search. He was the one that has to go in there and search the cell.
Now, when you arrived there at the cell to do the search, did you have a particular area that you searched?
Yes, I searched the sink and the toilet area.
Okay. Now, once you searched those areas, can you tell the jury what you found?
Underneath the rim of the toilet, I found about a 6-inch piece of metal that was from the shower that was sharpened.
Okay. And you
Stuck to the bottom of the rim of the toilet.
Okay. You say from the shower. What made you believe it was from the shower?
Because Deputy Morgan Lee had noticed that it was missing, and that's when I started searching for it.
Okay. I want to show you what we marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 2, I believe. I'll ask if you recognize it. Yeah. It's Commonwealth's Exhibit 2. Do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is this what you found in the cell?
Underneath the rim of the toilet.
Okay, on October the 13th, that day. What about this black?
That was held to the bottom of it that was stuck underneath the rim.
Okay, so did you recover this black strip of, I guess it's been described as putty before?
Yes, ma'am.
You recovered that as well? Okay, and then both of these things, did you turn these over to your supervisor?
Sure did.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
No questions? Thank you. You're excused.
Because Daniel Howard.
Right over there. And before you sit, could you raise your right hand, please, and be sworn? Do you swear solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Be seated.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Daniel Howard.
Mr. Howard, how are you employed?
I'm a supervisor at the Harlan County Detention Center.
How long have you been at the detention center?
11 years.
And what are your job responsibilities there?
I'm a shift supervisor and training officer at the detention center. I oversee a crew, maintain the facility, maintain order, cleanliness, everything overall.
Okay, and so how many people are under your supervision? How many deputy jailers?
We have, 3, 4, 5, 6, including females. Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the defendant in this case, Shelby Shell, who's seated here to my left?
I am.
Were you involved in a search of Mr. Shell's cell back in October? It was on October the 17th, 2013?
I was.
Now, when the decision was made that this cell should be searched, who made that decision?
It was my decision.
And who chose the deputy jailers that would conduct that search?
I did.
Were you present with them when they actually conducted the search of the cell?
I was.
And do you recall what was recovered from that search?
I do.
Okay, would you tell the jury, please?
We, as we entered the cell, as we searched the cell, Deputy Morgan Lee looked up at the shower and realized that part of the track where the shower curtain would hang was broken. And so as the deputy started searching, I know that, can't recall the exact order, but I know that Deputy Lawson searched the toilet area and found a large piece of sharpened metal under the toilet that was held up with putty that goes around the window, a black like caulking that was used to hold it up underneath the toilet. And Deputy Goodman found a cardboard gun, looked like a gun, cut out to be, looked like a gun, and a length of rope about 3.5 feet, and another paper knife. It was meant to look like a metal knife because it had foil on it, but it was paper.
Okay, now, did you, the things that each of the deputy jailers found, did you take those things?
I did. They were given to me, and then I took them to the front office of the jail and give them to the jailer who stored them.
Okay, and the piece of track that a piece was broken off, did you take that as well?
We removed all that, yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you what has already been marked and admitted as Commonwealth's exhibits and just ask you if these are the things that you took possession of that day from Mr. Shelby Shell's cell.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Commonwealth's exhibit number 1. Do you recognize this?
I do.
Is this the piece of rope?
That is the piece of rope that was found in the cell?
Okay. And you were present when you found this piece of rope?
Yes, I was there.
Okay. Commonwealth's exhibit number 2. Do you recognize this?
I do. That is what was found inside. The metal piece was found inside the toilet. That sheath at the end, I believe that was found under the mattress.
Okay. How about this black substance?
That is the putty that's used to hold it in place.
Okay. And you
Inside the toilet.
You saw them recover this that day?
Yes, I was there.
And then Commonwealth's exhibit number 3.
That's the rest of the track from the shower.
Okay. Did you see him take this down that day?
Yes.
Did you make some kind of incident report?
Yes, I made an incident report.
I will show you, this is marked Commonwealth's exhibit number 4, and I'll just ask you to look at the second page of this, and what I want to know is, did you make this incident report that then became a part of Derek Moore's report?
This one?
Yes.
That's my report,
Okay.
yes.
So you actually generated that report?
I wrote this, yes.
Did you then turn it to Derek Moore?
I did.
Okay. Thank you. This is previously been in. Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant Howard. I have no further questions.
Any cross?
Lieutenant Howard?
Yes, sir.
You are a supervisor of the jail.
I am.
You are. And you filled out documentation because you found something, correct?
That's correct.
And so you fill out documentation for all kinds of other things at the jail too as well, right?
Correct.
But you did not fill out any kind of documentation saying you searched the cell when Shelby moved in there? There's no documentation about that? Is that correct?
Right, I guess before anybody was put in there, is that what you're saying? Yes.
There's no documentation about that?
No, we just usually try to make sure it's cleaned or cleaned up.
But you do, I mean, you document all kinds of other things.
We do.
Okay. And that track that was about 15 blocks high?
Okay.
At the top of the ceiling?
I guess so.
Which would be 15 feet?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't really know how high it is, but it's kind of high.
You can't reach it, right?
Not like this.
You would need
No.
a ladder to climb up and get it. Yes.
No. Well.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Any redirect?
I just have just a couple brief questions. Do you know if prior to October 2013, if that cell that Shelby Shell was living in, if that had been searched before? While he was living in it?
Oh, I'm sure it had to. While he was in there, yes.
Yes, while he was in there.
There's no way I could say for what the date was, but that's kind of a routine thing anyway for us to do searches.
Okay.
Even today, every day that we enter his cell, we kind of do a little visual inspection. That's just kind of normal.
Okay. And in any previous search, did you find that rope or that shank in the cell?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Not until October the 17th, 2013?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any recross?
Just, you're not aware of the dates because you didn't document, right?
We wouldn't document just walking into the cell and just doing a visual inspection, no.
That's all. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Did you have more?
Commonwealth has no further witnesses.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the Commonwealth has announced closed for its case in chief. Yes, you may approach the bench.
Judge, now the Commonwealth's announced closed. I believe it's our obligation to make a motion for direct verdict on behalf of Mr. Shell. We would so move. The issue here is whether the contraband was dangerous or not. It's our submission that while it may qualify as contraband, because it's a violation of jail regulations, been no indication that it was used or attempted to be used in any way that would cause harm. So we would move the court to direct a verdict on the issue of dangerous contraband, which would then direct a verdict on the felony charge of promoting contraband first degree.
Of course, a motion for direct verdict. The evidence is to be interpreted in the light most favorable to the non-moving party. And I think that taken in that light, the jury could reasonably conclude that these items were dangerous contraband. So I'm denying the motion. Correct.
Your Honor, while we're up here, at this time, we don't have any witnesses to call. However, we would ask the jury be excused for just a minute and allow the court to have a colloquy with Mr. Shell about his right to testify and his right to remain silent, just so the record is clear that he's been advised and he knows that he can choose.
I think I'll ask the jury to go to the jury room this time.
That'd be fine.
They won't be gone very long, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
If you would, Mr. Bailiff, lead the jury to the jury room.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to have a brief time for some motions out of the presence of the jury. That's normal. It's not something a lot. Just, it should be just about 10 minutes or so. There are bathrooms back there. There's water. I don't know what else there is right now. Thank you.
All rise.
Be seated. Mr. Shell, the Commonwealth has concluded their case, and now it's time for the defense to put on evidence if they have any that they wish to put on, that you wish to put on. Now, you have the right to remain silent. You cannot be made to testify or required. The jury will be instructed that if you choose not to testify, they are not to hold that against you or use it against you. On the other hand, you also have the right to testify if you choose to do so. However, if you do, you will be subject to cross-examination by the Commonwealth also. So I just wanted to advise you of your rights on that. And have you discussed this with your attorneys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
I'm not going to testify today.
all right. Okay. Let's see. Do the parties have jury instructions?
Yes, Judge.
Tendered? I think the defense has told the court that you have no witnesses
We do not.
to call this to call.
The arrest warrant was tendered. That's the only issue of note in this is we have tendered consistent with the verdict motion instruction for promoting second degree. We've also tendered a promoting first and asked for 4 special instructions delineating each of the 4 things found in the cell, whether that item qualifies as dangerous contraband.
Or just,
Definitions are standard from the Green Book.
I didn't leave anything back there. Because I took that one out. I don't think she took them. Judge, if I can, check this room.
I'm sorry?
I need to check in this room.
Sure.
I may have left.
Certainly, yeah, go ahead.
Proposed instructions, and it only includes promoting contraband first degree.
Did you receive a copy of their tendered instructions? Did you give the Commonwealth a copy of your tendered instructions?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Just now.
Let's get a, could you, yeah. Let's see, do you have a, our copier's not working.
Take it down a second.
Yes, if you could make 2 copies for us. Actually, just one more copy, just one copy is what we need.
That's while we're waiting, we would renew our motion for directed verdict and close them all again.
The ruling is the same. give one to the defense counsel. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Next is Carrie.
I remember that.